Hey, what is going on, guys? It is Brooke, or the Undead DM, and I apologize in advance for the audio. It is extremely hot where I live, so if you guys hear the fan in the background, it is most likely on because it is extremely hot. But, with the introductions out of the way, let's just get started into this video. So, in this episode of Homebrew Review, I'm going to be going over the cohorts for the captain class, as I stated from my previous videos. Yep, right here, this guy, this class, the captain from Volda Spire Secrets by Mage Hand Press. Gonna go over what they are, what they're meant to do, and how it pertains to what your subclass says about you. Not says about you, but you get the idea. So, we're actually going to skip over this portion right here and go to page 55, where it tells you all the different options that you have for your cohorts. So you have the Abbot, the Berserker, the Champion, Construct, Cultist, Hunter, Mage, Stalker, Templar, and the Undead. So the Abbot is a devout adherent to the faith. An Abbot can work minor divine miracles with the whispering of prayers and the waving of hands. So this is essentially the cleric. Then you got the Berserker, which is essentially the barbarian. The champion, which is the fighter. The construct, which is just a construct. And it can do either artificer things. I think this is meant to be the artificer. The cultist is meant to be the warlock. The hunter is the ranger. The mage is the wizard. The stalker is the rogue. The templar is the paladin. And the undead, I'm not sure what they were going for with this one. I'm gonna be honest, I think they just wanted to have a fun little necromancy thing going on. But we're gonna move past that. So, we have the Abbot. It is a medium humanoid of any race, of any alignment, but presumably one that matches yours. It has a 13 armor class, 11 hit points, 30 movement speed. It has a 13, 10, 12, 10, 14, and 11 in strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma respectively. It's got a +4 to medicine, +2 to religion. It's got a +4 to wisdom and a +2 to charisma saves, 12 passive perception. It can speak any language, any one language, usually common. It's a 1/4 challenge rating, and it has spellcasting. So, the Abbot has first level spellcasting abilities with wisdom. It has a DC 12 with a +4 to hit. And it has the Light, Sacred Flame, Thaumaturgy cantrips known, as well as the Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, and Sanctuary spells with only 2 slots. And they can take the Mace attack action, which is a +3, that deals an average of 4 points of damage with a D6 +1 bludgeoning, or a Light Crossbow, which is a +2, and it does 4 with a 1d8 piercing damage. And while following the command of a captain, the Abbot gains additional abilities based on the captain's level. So at second level, the Abbot gets turned undead, same as the cleric. It gets better spellcasting, so it gets Detect Evil and Good, Cure Wounds, Guiding Bolt, and Sanctuary, so it gets 1 additional spell. It also gets Lesser Restoration and 2 second level slots whenever you reach 6th level. And then at 10th level, the Abbot gets Spiritual Weapon and Revivify, gaining 2 3rd level spell slots. And then at 14th level as a captain, your Abbot gets a 4th level slot and gets the spells Beacon of Hope and Divination. And then at 18th level, your Abbot gets the ability to cast Death Ward and Flame Strike, and gets a single 5th level spell. So initially this sounds like a good idea, and from what I was able to conjure, being that your cohort, if I remember correctly, is returned to life, obeys your commands. It can be raised from the dead, hit points, ability scores, proficiencies. It also gains proficiency with simple weapons, martial weapons, light armor, medium armor, heavier. Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, based on this, your cohort cannot get any better in terms of its stats than what is on the stat block. It just gains more effects. Meaning that your abbot, because of its weak strength and its weak stats, the fact that their ability scores never really increase, and the abbot has a really bad spell list because it doesn't even get guidance, it doesn't get spirit guardians, which it would be really, really broken if it did. But the fact that it doesn't get really any of the good cleric spells is a bit sad. The fact that it doesn't have aid or bless or any sort of support spells like that, and it just gets bad spells. Like I wouldn't say, no. Well, I can say spiritual weapon's is a bad spell, but I wouldn't say sanctuary is a bad spell. It's just very situational. As a lot of these effects are. More generalist good spells would have been a lot better of an option here. Especially since, as far as I'm aware, you can't change your cohort unless it dies. So, unless there's a very specific ruling in the cohort's ability that states that you can't, that you can change it. So, let's see. Following an 8-hour period, that creature becomes your cohort, so you can only have one. So yeah, you can change your cohort, but it takes 8 hours, so, having to change that basically once per long rest is a bit rough, especially if you have such a bad spell list like this. But I guess it's useful if you're going into an undead portion of the game. I'd probably put this in, C tier. It's not good, it's not bad. It just has spellcasting, which is innately better than a lot of things. But the fact that its spellcasting is kind of weak, and it's kind of all over the place when it comes to spells. Like, why does it get Divination and Flame Strike instead of better 4th and 5th level spells? I don't know. Just does. The Berserker. So it has 14 armor class with 13 HP, 30 speed, 14, 14, 14, 9, 10, and 9. In the stats of that order. Strength, Dex, Con. You get the idea. It has a +4 to Athletics, +3 to Survival, +4 to Strength and Con saves, 10 Perception, 1 Language, and it gets Unarmored Defense, where its AC is equal to 10, plus its Dexterity, plus its Constitution. And then it can make a great weapon, a great axe attack, which is a +4, does 8 damage on average. And it can make a hand axe attack, which is a +4 to hit, and it deals around 5 damage on average. And then it gets the following abilities as long as it's your cohort. So it gets the ability to Rage, and it recharges after a long rest, where you get all the advantages of Barbarian's Rage. Then you get Relentless, where if it ever drops to 0 hit points, it's dropped to 1 instead at the 6th level. At 10th level, it can rage twice every long rest, and deals an additional 3 damage on rolls, as opposed to the 2 that it normally grants. And at 14th level, whenever it crits, you add an additional die, and at 18th level, it could rage 3 times per long rest, and it does an additional 4 damage on average. So I think this one is the weakest out of all of them. I'm just going to say it right now. The only one I think that's going to top it in terms of weakness is the Rogue. I think even the champion's going to be a little bit better. Not by much, but this is basically just barbarian, but worse. This is somehow worse than even rogue baseline. I don't know how they did that, but it is amazing. So let's start it off. That first off, you cannot increase these ability scores. You cannot. So your armor class for the berserker is never going to get any higher. Your HP is basically never going to get any higher. So that half damage on all that doesn't matter. You don't get any of the barbarian's other unique features. You don't get the ability to rage infinitely. The rage in this system, in this instance, still is based on charges per long rest, which sucks, meaning that your cohort half the time is doing nothing, if not 90% of the time, because it's based on a long rest. And that's it. It doesn't get any unique subclass features. It wouldn't be much better if it did, but this is definitely going bottom of D tier, probably top of F tier. Somewhere in between there, because I don't put things in E. There is no such thing as E in my book. There's either D or F. There's no E. Champion, let's see. So 16 AC. They get 11 hit points, 30 speed, and like I'm going to say for the rest of this, I'm just going to tell you the ability scores. Just know that they are in order from strength down to charisma. So for the champion, it's 14, 11, 13, 11, 12, and 9. They get plus 3 to animal handling, plus 4 to athletics, plus 4 to strength and cons, plus 4 to strength and plus 3 to con saves, 11 passive perception, 1 language, and they get martial prowess where they deal an additional 2 damage on melee weapon damage rolls. Included in the damage rolls. Don't know why they had to add that, but we'll get to that. Make a longsword attack, plus 4 to hit. It deals 8 damage, or 9 damage if it's used in 2 hands, and it can do a javelin attack, which is plus 4 to hit, 5 damage on average. And while the champion is your cohort, you can do the following. So at 2nd level, it's the champion's strength, dexterity, or constitution increased by 2. At 6th level, you get 2nd wind, which recharges on a short or long rest, where the champion can regain 1d10 plus the captain level hit points. At 10th level, the champion gets another ability score increase. At 14th level, they score a critical hit on a 19 and 20. And at 18th level, they get martial advantage, where they can deal, once per turn, they could deal an additional 7 damage on average, or 2d6, to a creature it hits with a weapon attack, if that creature is within 5 feet of an ally of the champion that isn't incapacitated. So again, not great, because it is fighter, let's just be honest here. It's not good. It's not even Battlemaster fighter. It's, as the name suggests, champion fighter, so it's not going to be good. But what I've noticed so far is that this is the only one up to this point. Pardon me. I was yawning. Sorry. Champion is the only one that has ability score increases, meaning it's the only one that can get somewhat better, which isn't great, but it's got something above the berserker. So I'm putting champion above the berserker, but not by much. The construct cohort, 17 AC, so the highest AC so far, 13 HP, 30 speed, 14, 10, 15, 10, 10, 9. It's immune to poison damage. It's immune to the charmed, exhausted, and poisoned condition. It has 60 feet of dark vision. It has passive perception of 10. And it understands the languages of its creator, usually common, but it cannot speak. And it has a death burst, where the construct explodes when it drops to 0 hit points, and each creature within 5 feet must make a DC 12 Constitution saving throw, or take 2d6 fire damage, half as much on success. Then the only attack it can make is a slam attack, which is +4, and it deals 1d8 plus 2 bludgeoning damage. And while it is your cohort, it gains the following effects. So at second level, it gains blind sight up to 60 feet and adds your captain level to its passive perception score. So that means this can possibly get upwards of a 30 passive perception check. At 6th level, its armor class improves by 1, so it becomes 18. The Death Burst ability increases to 66 fire damage instead of 2d6. Then at 10th level, the charge slam ability makes it so it deals an additional 1d8 lightning damage whenever it hits with its slam attack. And also at 10th level, it gains magic resistance, where it has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. At 14th level, it gets improved armor, where it gets a +1 to its AC. And at 18th level, it gets Unerring Strike once per turn, where it can repeat its slam attack if it misses. So far, this is looking to be the most hard-to-hit creature. This is the most hard-to-hit one, as at this point, it has 17, 18, 19 AC, which isn't... It isn't perfect, but it is pretty good, all things considered. Because, looking at it, it has 17 AC to start, but it only gets up to that 19 AC at 14th level, which is basically endgame at this point. But it also doesn't do the most damage, and it doesn't really have anything it doesn't have any abilities that make people want to attack it. In fact, it has an ability that, unless the enemies are not completely aware of it, it incentivizes you to put this cohort in the front. But it also de-incentivizes your melee people to get anywhere near it, because it deals damage if it ever goes down, and with it only having 13 HP, So, unless I read it incorrectly, which I might have, yeah. Your cohort gains additional hit die and increases hit points accordingly. So, yeah, that's my mistake. So it does get better, but not by much. Still, it doesn't have a lot going on for it, but at least it's better than the other two, based on the fact that it does get increased armor, so you could use it as kind of like a tanking, like not really a tank, because it doesn't have a lot of HP, but you could use it sort of like as an armor dodge tank by just putting it in a doorway and blocking everyone out. So it's really good for that. I'll put that at like a C tier with the Abbot. The Cultist, 12 AC, 11 hit points, 30 speed, 11, 13, 12, 11, 9, 14. He has a +4 to Deception and Persuasion, +1 to Wisdom, and +4 to Charisma saves, 9 passive perception, usually common. It has spellcasting, where it's a first level spellcaster. It uses Charisma with a DC 12 +4 to hit, and it regains expended spell slots when it finishes a short or long rest, and it knows the following Warlock spells. It knows Eldritch Blast, Minor Illusion, and it knows the first level spells Charm Person and Hellish Rebuke, and it can make a dagger attack at +3, dealing 3 damage on average, which is 1d4 +1. And while it is your cohort, it gains the following abilities. So at second level, it gets Agonizing Blast, where it adds their Charisma modifier to the damage of their Eldritch Blast. At 6th level, their spellcasting improves to where they can cast the spells Comprehend Languages and Ray of Enfeeblement. At 10th level, they get Dark One's Own Luck once per short or long rest, where they can, whenever they make an ability check or saving throw, D10 roll, and after the roll, yeah, they can add it, but they don't, whatever. Same thing as Fiend Warlock. At 10th level again, their spellcasting gets even better, where now they also get the spells Fear and Suggestion, and they also get Shocking Grasp as a cantrip. At 14th level, their spellcasting gets better, where they now also get the spells Banishment and Gaseous Form. And then at 18th level, it gets even better with Blight and Hold Monster. So just by the nature of it being a spellcaster, it's already going to be at a C tier, but it's probably bottom of C tier, way below the Abbot. It's probably, if I had to put it somewhere, it would be in C tier. At high C tier, it would be Abbot, and then in between them would be the Construct, and then bottom of C tier would be the Cultist so far, as most of these spells aren't very good. Eldritch Blast, Agonizing Blast, whatever, pretty standard combo. But then it gets strange spells like Comprehend Languages. Like, why? And also, why does it get Gaseous Form? Why? Sure, it recharges its spell slots on a short and long rest, but that's so strange. That is so strange. They really made somehow a worse spell list than the Abbot. Like, it has some decent spells, like Fear, which is a pretty okay spell, but a lot of monsters, at that point, whenever you get the Fear spell, which is 10th level, a lot of creatures at that point are immune to the Frightened condition anyway. So, it's so strange. And also, Hold Monster at 18th level. Legendary resistance is a thing. Monsters have high saves against that. Not much you could really do. It's probably bottom C tier. Hunter. Again, I don't know what's going on with this formatting right here, where they put Hunter and Mage here at the same time, but then only put the Hunter one down here, and then they make the Mage one in the next. That's so strange. So Hunter is 14 armor class, 11 HP, 30 speed, 10, 14, 12, 10, 14, 9. It also gets a +2 to nature, +4 to survival, +2 to strength, and +4 to dex saves. It gets a 12 perception, passive perception, and it gets keen hearing and sight, where it has advantage on perception checks relying on hearing or sight. It can make a scimitar attack at +4, dealing 5 or 1d6 +2 damage. It can also make a longbow attack at +4, dealing 1d8 +2 or 6 damage. And while it is your cohort, it gains the following abilities. So at 2nd level, it adds 2 to its ranged weapon attack rolls, so it just gains archery. At 6th level, it gets spellcasting, where it's a DC 12, +4 to hit, and it only gets the spells Annual Friendship, Hunter's Mark, and Longstrider. At 10th level, its spellcasting gets better, where it gets 2nd level spells, and now it gets Spike Growth. At 10th level, you get 2 weapon fighting, where if the hunter wields 2 light weapons, it can use a bonus action to make an additional weapon attack. At 14th level, it can take the disengage action as a bonus action. Also at 14th level, its spells get better with Pass Without Trace. That's it. And at 18th level, its spellcasting gets better, where it gets Haste. That's it. As much as it pains me to do this, it has to go below. It has to go below the Abbot. It's still above the other two, just by nature of it being ranged and having spells, but it is below Abbot because they quite literally took the Ranger and they didn't give it any of its good spells. It gave, it gave it 1 good spell, and that's Pass Without Trace. Once it got 3rd level spells, why on earth they didn't give it Conjure Animals or anything? Because even in the 3rd level section where they gave it haste, and it says counts as ranger spell for the hunter, the fact that they didn't give it something like web is disappointing. Highly disappointing. They missed it. They could have pulled from any other spells from the ranger spell list, and they failed. They utterly failed. This cohort is honestly so disappointing. It's surprising how they even thought that this was good. Sure, they still have the +2 from archery, but they get 2-weapon fighting way too late. The disengage is still way too late, and the spells are just awful. So awful. And the mage is 11 AC, 7, which this is the only one that has -2 HP, which is really strange. 30 feet of move speed, 9, 12, 9, 14, 13, 13. It has a +4 to Arcana and History, +4 to Intelligence, +3 to Wisdom saves, 11 Perception. Could usually speak Common. It's a 1st level caster with a 12 DC, 4 to hit. And it gains the cantrips Firebolt, Light, Mage Hand Press, Digitation, as well as the 1st level spells Mage Armor, Magic Missile, and Shield. It can also make a dagger attack at +3 to deal 1d4 +1 piercing damage. And while it is your cohort, it gains the following abilities. So at level 2, it gains magic resistance, so it has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. At 6th level, it gains better spells, so it gets Misty Step and Scorching Ray. At 10th level, its spellcasting gets better, so now it also gets Detect Magic, and it also gets Fireball. At 14th level, it gets better, so now it also gets Counterspell and Greater Invisibility. And at 18th level, it gets even better, so now it has Ice Storm and Cone of Cold. So automatically A tier. This is automatically A tier because it has Shield. Shield is one of the best 1st level spells. I'm a little disappointed that they gave it Detect Magic at 10th level as opposed to Absorb Elements. But the fact that they gave it Shield and then they gave it Misty Step, 2 of the best defensive spells that a wizard can have, and then they just went at 14th level and gave it Counterspell as well. This is simultaneously one of the best damage dealers because of Scorching Ray, because of the consistency of Firebolt and Fireball, but then they also gave it Ice Storm and Cone of Cold. Granted, you don't get Lightning Bolt, but most people can use Fireball anyway. Greater Invisibility is up there too. They just gave it so much, and the creativity with Mage Hand Press Digitation alone can get you out of a lot of things. So this is high A tier, bordering on S tier. I'd even say it is S tier, just based on how strong this is, based on the fact that it is just the wizard, but slightly toned down. I think if this was the wizard in 5th edition baseline, I think that would still be too strong. Stalker, which is the rogue, 14 AC, 9 hit points, 30 movement speed, 9, 14, 11, 13, 12, 11. It has a +4 to acrobatics and stealth, +4 to dex, +3 to intelligence saving throws, 11 passive perception, usually a common language, and once per turn it can trigger sneak attack, where it does 1d6 damage on hit, with a weapon attack that has advantage on its sneak attack. Everyone knows what this is. It's +4 to hit, d6 +2 damage, or it's a short bow with a +4 to hit, 1d6 +2 damage, and then while it's your cohort, it gains the following effects. So at 2nd level, Cunning action, you can take the dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action. At 6th level, the sneak attack increases to 2d6. 10th level, you get uncanny dodge. And then at 10th level, you get sneak attack upgrade again to 3d6. At 14th level, you get evasion. At 14th level, again, you also get 4d6 for sneak attack. And at 20th level, which, as far as I'm aware, is the only one that gets a 20th level, the Stalker critically hits. It just gets the Assassin Rogue's critical hit feature at 3rd level, but at 20th level. So, once again, like I stated in the Berserker section, this is probably going to go way down there, based on the fact that it's supposed to be doing high amounts of damage, but it does really bad damage. And it's only once per turn, which does suck. But the fact that you could do like a little bit of words loopholing saying that, well, you know, technically an attack of opportunity is not your turn, therefore you could trigger sneak attack again. Yes, but you're still dealing less than a normal rogue, and the rogue is already dealing the least amount of damage. One of the least amount of damage. So this is going way down there with the Berserker. The Templar, 16 AC, 11 health, 30 speed, 14, 9, 12, 10, 10, 14. It gets plus 4 to athletics, plus 2 to religion, plus 2 to wisdom, plus 4 to charisma saves, 10 passive perception. It usually has common, and brave. The Templar has advantage on saving throws against being frightened. It can make a longsword attack at plus 4, dealing a d8 plus 2, or a d10 plus 4 if it's being used in 2 hands. And it could also make a javelin attack at plus 4, dealing 1d6 plus 2 on hit. And while it is your cohort, it gains the following benefits. At 2nd level, you, as an action, can cause the Templar to heal 2d8 hit points once per long rest. At 6th level, it gains spellcasting, DC 12 plus 4 to hit. And the only spells that it gets are Command, Divine Favor, and Protection from Evil and Good. At 6th level as well, you also get Divine Eminence, where as a bonus action, it can expend a spell slot, and it can cause his next melee attack to deal an additional 3d6 radiant damage to a target, and it lasts until the end of the turn. And if it expends a spell slot of 2nd level or higher, the extra damage increases by a d6 for each level above the 1st. It also gets spellcasting at 10th level, where it gets access to Branding Smite. At 14th level, it gets Parry, where as a reaction, it can add a 2 to its AC against one melee attack that would hit it, and it must see the attacker, and it must be wielding a melee weapon, so you can't do this against ranged weapons or spells. Its spellcasting gets a little bit better, where it also gets Magic Weapon, and then at 18th level, its spells get a little bit better again, where it now gets Spirit Guardians. I'm tempted to put this above the Abbot, solely based on the 18th level feature having Spirit Guardians. But at the same time, I understand that putting it that high, based on one spell, would be a little bit much. So I think I would put it at the same level as the Abbot, but even so, I think the parry feature is very weak for a 14th level feature, because Shield, it works on everything, and the Mage can just cast Shield. It is a plus 5 bonus to AC against anything that could hit you. This parry ability is 12 levels too late, and it only gives you a plus 2, and it only works against melees, and you can only use it if you see them. So if you're blinded, you can't use it. If they're not using a melee weapon, you can't use it. If they hit you with more than a bolt than 2 higher than your AC, you really don't want to use it, because there's no point. And a lot of the Divine Eminence is very weird because it requires a bonus action. You expend a spell slot, and it lasts. It says that it causes. It says that the Templar can expend a spell slot to cause its melee weapon attacks to deal an additional 3d6 damage. But it doesn't get extra attacks, so it's only one attack. just by the nature of the cohort itself. The captain's abilities may give it an extra attack. It's been a while since I've read the base class, so if that's true, go ahead and leave me a comment down below, but as far as I know, this is just one attack, so you're only getting 3d6 damage, so having the whole specification of it lasts until the end of turn doesn't really matter. So I'm going to put this like at the same level as the Abbot, solely based on the fact that the Abbot doesn't have Spirit Guardians, but the Templar does, which is weird. And then finally the Undead Cohort. So it has a 9 armor class, which is the weakest armor class of all. It has the second highest HP though, with 13, 30 movement speed, 15, 10, 15, 9, 9, 9. Immunity to poison, immunity to charm, exhaustion, and poison conditions. Dark vision 60 feet, past perception 9. It can understand in any one language but cannot speak itself. It gets the Undead Fortitude feature, where if it ever drops to 0 hit points, make a Constitution saving throw of a DC 5 plus the damage taken, unless the damage is radiant or from a critical hit. And if you succeed, it drops to 1 instead. It can make a bite attack at +4, dealing a d6 plus 2 damage. And while it is your cohort, it gains these effects. So at 2nd level, turn resistance. It has advantage on saving throws against any effects that turn undead. At 6th level, the Undead Bite deals an additional 1d6 necrotic damage on hit. At 10th level, the Undead regains 1 hit point at the start of each of its turns, and if the Undead takes fire or radiant damage, the trait doesn't function until the start of the Undead's next turn, and the Undead dies only if it starts its turn with 0 hit points and does not regenerate. At 14th level, the Undead's Bite deals an additional d6 necrotic damage for a total of 2d6, and it regains hit points equal to the damage dealt. And Undead Horde, a humanoid slain by the Undead's Bite, rises 24 hours later as a zombie under the captain's control unless the humanoid is restored to life or its body is destroyed, and it can have no more than 6 zombies under its control at a time. The zombies remain under control for 24 hours, after which the captain must cast the Animate Dead or similar effect to exert control over them. So when we get to the Necromancer later, you're going to see that this cohort by itself at 18th level is slightly better than the Necromancer. We will definitely get to that, but it is slightly better because you can have up to 6 creatures at a time. But what's strange to me is that you as the captain have to cast this spell, but the captain is not a spellcasting class. As far as I remember, it's not a spellcasting class. If it is, I'm just dumb, but as far as I'm remembering, it's not a spellcasting class. No, it's not. So, and I don't think any banners I've discussed previously give it the ability to cast spells. No, it doesn't. So, it's strange that they have the stipulation that in order to control this horde, you have to cast the Animate Dead or similar magic when you don't have access to that. So the Undead Cohort can both be a blessing and a curse, because you can essentially have 6 additional bodies on the field that heal. But on the flip side of that, if you don't have access to those spells, like whether or not you have a surplus of scrolls that your wizard made for you of Animate Dead, then you're just screwed. Because then you just lose quite literally 90% of your army, and you're left with the one guy. So it is both better than the Necromancer in the sense that you get more creatures technically at the same rate, but they are better in the sense that they can do more, but not having the means to control them does suck. Would probably put this in D tier above above the Berserker and the Stalker, but it being only melee does hinder it a little bit, which is why it's below the other ones. Overall, I'm a little bit disappointed with the cohorts. I would assume that their logic here was to load a lot of the power into the base class, but as you saw from my previous videos, they didn't really do that. They really lowballed a lot of the captain's baseline features, shoved a lot of the good ones, a lot of the somewhat okay ones, and the really bad ones into the banners, and then they thought they could get away with like a mediocre, what were they called? The companions, I think that's what they were called, or the sidekicks. There we go, the sidekicks. They thought they could get away with a mediocre leveling up sidekick when the sidekicks are just better. The only one that's an exception is the mage, and that's because it's a wizard. Based on the merit of its spells alone, it is just strictly better than the other ones. So, my recommendation, if you're gonna play a captain, just pick the mage. It will help you, it will help everyone else in the long term. Just never pick anything else because they are just drastically worse mechanically than any other choice. And you will feel as if you have wasted your abilities. And it does suck. I would honestly give the captain D tier. Low D tier. It doesn't have very many options, as all of the tactics that you get, quote unquote get, are not chosen. You are just given them, so you have no choice in the matter. You have 7 subclasses, but only like 2 of them are good, or even remotely usable. And out of the, 5 to 7 cohorts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 10, my apologies. Out of the 10 cohorts, only like half of them are usable, or even worth touching. And one of them is so drastically strong that picking anything else feels like a downgrade. And all of the power budget is spread out, but no one thing, not even the base class, has any remote amounts of power that makes the class seem any different than just playing a bard with a companion, really. You're just playing essentially a martial bard with a companion. It's not much different here. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to give this a pretty low D tier, maybe mid D tier, based on the mage alone. But yeah. So, that was my review of the captain. Next episode, we're going to be going over the craftsman. Honestly, an episode I'm not looking forward to, as this is one of the more complicated classes for me to personally understand as to why it needed to be a thing instead of just a system. But we'll get into that when we get into that. But yeah, thank y'all so much for watching. Latest.